It is mid-afternoon on September 17th, 2024, in Beirut. The streets are active with completely ordinary routines. People are picking up their children from school, walking to meetings, and stopping at street vendors to buy fruit. At 2:37 p.m., 3,000 pagers detonate simultaneously across Lebanon and Syria. The sequence from first explosion to last takes exactly 17 seconds. Within minutes, emergency rooms look like this. Hospitals are entirely overwhelmed by a flood of patients, presenting with identical injuries, localized, severe trauma to the hands, face, and abdomen. Intelligence analysts identified the cause as the communication devices themselves. Every blast originated from a pager, turning an essential organizational tool into a coordinated mass casualty weapon. To understand how this happened, you have to look at the target. Hezbollah operates with a reputation for extreme paranoia and strict operational security. Knowing that modern smartphones leave a constant trail of GPS data and digital surveillance, their leadership ordered a complete abandonment of cell phones. They shifted their entire communication network to this specific model of pager. It relies entirely on shortwave radio frequencies. It has no GPS chip, no Bluetooth, and no internet connection. These devices leave almost no digital footprint and cannot be hacked through conventional software. Since the system was sealed off from the digital world, Israeli intelligence targeted the only remaining entry point, the physical supply chain. 3 years prior to the detonations, planners inside the Israeli intelligence headquarters in Tel Aviv initiated a massive logistical operation. Rather than trying to intercept Hezbollah's physical equipment in transit, they decided to manufacture the equipment themselves. They built an Eastern European shell company from scratch. This was a fully functioning corporate entity with a generic name, flawless tax paperwork, and a presence at international industry trade shows. They hired real factory workers and engineers who believed they were building budget electronics for developing markets. The corporate front was exhaustive. If a Hezbollah procurement officer called the customer service number to ask a technical question about signal range, the call routed to a legitimate office in Taipei. Real, oblivious customer service representatives answered the phone, unaware they were working for an intelligence front. The first several shipments to Hezbollah consisted of perfectly clean, unmodified pagers. The devices were cheap, durable, and easily passed every internal security audit. When a device performs exactly as advertised for months, the end user naturally stops questioning it. That baseline of trust is exactly what the intelligence team spent 3 years building. To see how they eventually modified the devices, look at this 3D cross-section. On a restricted floor of the factory, undercover operatives carved out a microscopic cavity hidden deep behind the standard battery casing. Inside that space, they packed exactly 18 grams of PETN, a highly stable military-grade plastic explosive. They wired it to a miniaturized dormant radio receiver that drew a tiny amount of power from the main battery. The payload was engineered to mimic standard components. When Hezbollah's technical teams ran the modified pagers through X-ray scans and tore them apart looking for GPS trackers, the explosive material appeared identical to the dense shielding of the battery. But the physical engineering almost failed. A legitimate quality control manager at the factory noticed a tiny discrepancy on the assembly line. A specific batch of pagers weighed exactly 18 grams more than the factory specifications allowed. He immediately halted production for a review. To prevent the entire operation from collapsing, the undercover operatives on the factory floor intervened. They provided a plausible explanation. A batch of higher capacity batteries had been installed by mistake. The manager accepted the explanation because it was consistent with the product's performance. The shipment cleared. Hezbollah procured the units, tested random samples, found nothing wrong, and handed 3,000 active bombs directly to their own commanders. By September 2024, the modified pagers were distributed across the region. Intelligence officers monitored communication patterns and waited for a specific window, a scheduled Hezbollah communications drill that guaranteed nearly every target would have their device powered on and clipped to their belt. At 2:37 p.m., a transmission station broadcast a specialized, disguised radio frequency. The signal traveled at the speed of light, bypassing normal pager traffic to wake up the dormant detonators all at once. The immediate result was absolute operational paralysis. Commanders were incapacitated, relay systems vanished, and internal suspicion spread through the ranks as surviving members realized their most trusted equipment was the primary source of the attack. Achieving this objective through traditional military force would have required significant airstrikes or ground invasions. Instead, this operation neutralized thousands of specific operatives while leaving local infrastructure intact. Decades of investment in operational security failed because the attackers became a part of the organization's own logistics. They didn't breach the network, they built it. The international reaction shifted quickly from immediate shock to a technical analysis of the legal and ethical precedents. This operation demonstrated a level of patience and logistical depth that changes the way analysts view state-level conflict. By successfully infiltrating a production line, this operation proved that any device requiring a global supply chain is a potential point of failure. The technical precedent now exists for any consumer electronic that passes through third-party distributors or anonymous factory floors. Countering this tactic requires a level of verification that is nearly impossible for most organizations. They cannot build every component from scratch, meaning reliance on international shipping and anonymous manufacturing is a permanent structural risk. This operation demonstrated that trust is a structural vulnerability. When a group relies on a global supply chain, they are essentially inviting a potential weapon into their pockets, one delivered and verified by a manufacturer they can never truly verify themselves.